Nick Drake, who passed away 50 years ago this month, had it all. Good looks, a life of privilege, talent and crippling depression. Only a select few heard his records while he was alive, even fewer heard their worth. Drake's music only grows in stature with each year, even though his death went virtually unnoticed. Received wisdom is that Nick Drake was an English folk guitarist and singer, and while a lot of his work was just him and his guitar, his musical influences stretched far beyond folk music. He tastefully lifted elements of jazz, classical music, blues, Arabic rhythms and chanson, mostly non-British. Also, he wasn't born in Britain, just one of the many factors that will have contributed to his feeling of separation from others. He was born to an upper middle class family in what was then called Burma and is now called Myanmar. And around that time the British Empire was dissolving. There was an English colony whose members lived genteel, easy lives. They made sure to drink plenty of gin and tonic to make the days pass quicker and prevent malaria while the servants ran the house. His father was in engineering, organising infrastructure and machines. Despite being part of the machinery of the British Empire, his parents, Rodney and Molly Drake, were warm and loving. They were intelligent, sensitive people who weren't afraid to show affection to young Nicholas and his older sister Gabrielle. Taking the money they'd saved in the colonies, the family bought an idyllic family home in Tamworth-in-Arden, not far from Birmingham. Now, Nick Drake moved into the home around the time he would have been forming his first hazy memories. Among those memories would have been their Malaysian housekeeper, Nam Nam. By all accounts, she was treated very well by everybody and respected, especially by the children. The Drakes, though naturally reserved and conservative, were not austere. Importantly, they were both artistically inclined. They both wrote prose and poems for pleasure. And they played musical instruments. In particular, his mother was a songwriter. She'd compose at the piano with the infant Drake at her feet. He grew up seeing the act of creation being a normal day-to-day activity, like taking a walk or gardening. So Nick Drake first started on musical instruments early, but it wasn't with the guitar that he became famous for. Like most children, he resisted piano lessons as a child, but they were one that prepared him well for the future, and as an adult he was grateful. So his was a loving and nurturing home, but at the age of 8 he was sent away to prep. This is a kind of school designed to toughen up young boys who will eventually become captains of industry or military men. In legend, British private schools are a hotbed of sadism and depravity. They can bend the students in unnatural, callous shapes. But Nick Drake's experience seems to have been free of any of that kind of nastiness. He was well liked, made his friends laugh, destined for success. In fact, in his early life there are no real clues to the origin of a black dog that came to haunt him. By the end of prep school, he was head boy of the school. His headmaster described him as a splendidly keen, hard-working and reliable boy, delightfully natured. His school friend Nick Stewart had this to say: "I don't remember him being artistic or musical. If he'd asked me at the time which boy would go on to become an introspective folk singer, he would have been the last person I'd have mentioned." At age 11, he passed his entrance exams and went on to the prestigious Marlborough College, another mini society with its own hierarchies and snobberies to negotiate. And Nick Drake did fine without ever really trying. He was tall and, according to one of his teachers, the best 200-metre sprint runner to ever attend the school. He excelled at hockey and captained the team for a while, but he just wasn't interested in sport. For one thing, his eyesight was terrible. He was very short-sighted and hated wearing his glasses. They weren't cool. That didn't help with teamwork, no eye contact or depth vision. The lack of eye contact wouldn't have helped socially either. Being short-sighted tends to make a person introverted. Focus is shifted from the surroundings to inner contemplation, and so it was with Drake. He pursued music more seriously through high school. There was piano, of course, and clarinet for many years. And as many kids do, he formed a band with friends, and it was apparent he was talented. He was the only one who could sing. For a start, it became obvious that he was doing overwork, so he started to teach himself guitar. and the guitar became his most consistent companion throughout the rest of his life. It acted as a focus. It was expected, though, of boys of his type to either attend Oxford or Cambridge. However, his grades were disappointing. He spent a few months doing extra exams in the nearby city of Birmingham to get in. Being an accidentally excellent sportsman gave him a nudge. If he'd have gone to state school, he probably wouldn't have got into university, never mind Cambridge. Once he got his place for the following academic year at university, he decided to spend a few months on an exchange programme in France. The intention was that he'd flesh out the holes in his CV, improve his French. He'd already holidayed in the country a few times, and the language was one of his better school subjects. It's possible he, like many teenage boys in the 60s, had romantic ideas about the likes of Brigitte Bardot and Françoise Hardy. He did in fact catch a glimpse of Brigitte Bardot walking her pet baby tiger on a lead. And later he'd meet Françoise Hardy and she'd become intertwined in his story. In March 1967, he and his friends adventurously visited Morocco, where a completely out of character Nick played a couple of songs for the Rolling Stones, who just so happened to be visiting Marrakesh at the same time. He'd taken his guitar with him, of course. Mick Jagger was apparently very impressed and invited Drake to come and visit him any time in London. If he wasn't so introverted, this could be a very, very different story. But Nick Drake's life was more and more centred on his internal world. And it was at House University that the guitar became an extension of his soul. Removed from home and the pressure, he had time to improve his fingerpicking. He started writing songs, and when he transitioned to university back in Cambridge after the summer, he continued the habit. This time's the first flush of Nick Drake's creativity. It's when much of the material that became his first album was written. And it's this period we'll be covering in the next episode. So, thanks for watching, stay tuned, that should be up in the next couple of days, and at the end of the week, I think on the anniversary of Nick's passing, I'll be editing the whole thing into a complete story. Thanks a lot, bye.